Hey guys, how are you? I do hope things are okay your end, and whatever is going on in your life, a very big welcome here to the Holy Shed, the littlest parish in Christendom. It's great to have you all drop in. It's been a busy old week with me, getting my book of bad Christian prayers all ready to go, burning the candle at all ends, cutting myself shaving because I'm in a bit too much of a hurry. Uh, but it's all looking great to be ready for the retreat, which I'm so relieved about. The retreat I'm leading at Amadown at the beginning of March, which is when the book will become available more widely. I just can't wait. Today, we were at our home church at St Leonard's in Streatham, where I gave a sermon on the marriage at Cana, a passage which isn't really about a wedding, not really, as I see it. I think it's more of an amazing parable or sign of what God's kingdom is about. Incidentally, did you know that the amount of wine that Jesus came up with in Cana was enough to fill a wheelie bin? I mean, that's a bit of a hint, really, isn't it? That we're not dealing with the ordinary everyday world here. This is something that is more symbolic and absolutely none the worse for that. But look, I'm not going to give you the talk all over again. You'll be able to hear it once the church posts it, and I'll put up a link on Facebook in case you're interested. Now, something I meant to do last week and forgot was to mention a prayer request from Stephen in New Zealand for his brother in law, Paul, who's been having some tests and been waiting to know what's what. I mean, many of us have been there, or we've got loved ones who've been there. We know how awful that can be. So we're going to have a candle moment of quiet for Paul and his family, and for any others of you who are going through testing times just now. Let's just take a moment and be quiet in our hearts as we think about Paul and his family and any loved ones that you're thinking about. And here's our Holy Shed Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to live fully and generously through circumstances I cannot control. Hope to keep on imagining better times for myself and the world. And courage to change what I can instead of simply leaving it to others. Okay, now I'm sure if you're like me, you've been looking around of late and wondering what's going on, wondering if the world is going to implode. So many challenges, so many conflicts, so many things that can keep you up at night if you dwell on them. And it seems to me that what we all need is to woke up, if you know what I mean, to our desperate need in the world for peace. Peace among people of different backgrounds, different religions, different politics. Peace with this beloved home of ours, planet Earth, and maybe most importantly, peace within ourselves. Of course, all of these things are interdependent. There's a deep interconnection between peace on these various levels. And I've been thinking about this. It's so sad and utterly insane that things which can and should bring us and bind us closer together seem to be the very things that are driving us further and further apart in the world. I hate all this conflict stuff, all this unkindness, don't you? I mean, we appear to be at a point where everything, every little point of difference, of perspective, of background, of experience, is like a wedge that drives things further and further apart. And it really doesn't need to be this way. We are a gloriously diverse species who happen to have evolved amazing capacities, but essentially the same, we're all the same on the inside, all needing enough food and drink to keep us sustained, enough security to get by, all needing to know that we're loved and that we've got people to love, all needing to know that our lives have some sort of meaning or purpose, and all living on this tiny, beautiful planet floating around a remote part of the Milky Way, knowing that we and it will all come to an end at some point. So what do? We fight and bitch. We grab what we can, regardless. We create wars and famines. We see people who are driven from their homes as refugees who are out to threaten or deprive us in some way. We persecute people who happen to have a different sexual inclination or who feel ill at home in their own bodies. We make life difficult for people with different abilities or disabilities to us. Dumping rented bikes strewn across the pavement so people will fall over them. That really gets to me, you know. I mean, I just don't know why the hell people do that. You know what I mean? There are all these things that are going on there. And don't even get me onto Hamas, you know, wanting to eliminate Israel and the Israeli government determined to wipe the Palestinians out of existence. It really is time we all woke up, don't you think? Obviously, we can't make that happen for everyone, for all the issues in the world. What we can do is to be sure to wake up ourselves. And thank God there are plenty of people who are woke, who are awake to and alert to how this whole business of life on planet Earth is supposed to work, how we're supposed to treat each other, how we're supposed to treat this lovely planet of ours. A key theological point is the status of the stranger, that which is different. The Hebrew scriptures, which are where our Christian roots lie, of course, we've renamed it the Old Testament, but in those scriptures we find they speak much about the stranger. The stranger features a great deal in the Old Testament. About welcoming strangers, offering them hospitality, treating them compassionately and justly. And there's an awful lot there which is saying, yeah, you can look after yourself, but look after the stranger too. And I think that's what Jesus was talking about in Matthew when, you know, he said, insofar as you do these things, the way you treat these people, these strangers to you, that's the way that you're treating me. Xenophobia is literally translated as fear of strangers. That's what it is, fear of difference. The ancient biblical law requires us to overcome that fear and to welcome and build a bridge with strangers, with difference. And the opposite of xenophobia is xenophilia. That is love of strangers, the welcoming of strangers, embracing or celebrating difference. I needn't tell you which one of those is the way we're all supposed to be in our world and in our relationship with each other. So let me introduce you to another rabbi. I've been giving you rabbis of late. So, excuse me. Let me introduce you to a rabbi whose work I absolutely love and admire. His name is Mark Gopin. He is the director of the Center for World Religions, Diplomacy and Conflict Resolution. Quite a mouthful, quite a big job. So let's just listen to him for a couple of moments talking about his work and about this whole stranger thing. Take a look.
Greetings to all of you. Blessings of peace. My name is Mark Gopin, and I want to share with you that I have spent most of my life working for peace, studying peace, and building peace in various conflict regions and zones. And I can tell you that the most important element that is missing from our work is the relationship with strangers. We can build peace. We understand the issues of justice. We understand that the world needs to be sustainable in an utterly new way, but we need to work with strangers. We need to have compassion for them, and we need to reason together with them. So if each of you would build your world into at least 10 strangers from other communities, that would build a new world of peace through compassion and through reasoning together. Thank you.
Yeah, bless his heart. It's pretty wonderful, isn't it? And incidentally, hang into the end today because I'm going to show another clip of him right at the end of today. I mean, maybe you think that, building a bridge to 10 people, 10 strangers is quite a lot. Well, just start with one. That's where you've got to start, and see where that goes. One person who is a stranger to you in some way or other, and that can mean anything at all. But here's the important thing: creating peace with strangers or for strangers isn't it isn't supposed to resolve or eliminate our difference with. That's not what we're talking about here. It's rather to learn to sit with difference and know that there is something that is more important. There are things that are more important than the difference that we have with this person. And that's the sort of things that we share in common at a deeper and more human level. And I know there are people in this world who it's pretty damned hard to imagine finding that kind of commonality. Well, hey, I think the way to go about a new task isn't to go and try and do the hardest possible bit of it, but start where you can. I'm not in a position to go and try and build a bridge with that stranger who is Donald Trump, for example. I can leave that for some other time. But it's beginning where we are with the people that are part of our life or part of the daily encounters that we have. That's what he's talking about. Jewish tradition has a thing called shalom, right? You're familiar with that. At the commonest level, it's a greeting, shalom, or peace be with you. But shalom means much more than that. It's actually more of a philosophy, a theology, more of a religious practice. It doesn't just mean, in a straightforward way, peace. It's a much greater and richer term. Shalom is about wholeness, which is actually the root of the idea of salvation in the Bible. It's about finding the interconnectedness of ourselves with all people, so the way that when we say peace or shalom, the way that we're going to have peace is by discovering and restoring a sense of wholeness to our relationships, to our place in the world, and so on and so forth. Mark Gopin, who you just were hearing from, points out that in rabbinic tradition there is the sense of shalom being a way to identify God. God is shalom. God is peace. And so the pursuit of peace is a religious practice or a religious experience, regardless of whether a person has got a particular religion or no religion at all. If a person is pursuing or working towards peace in the world, they are pursuing God, named or unnamed, right? It's a religious practice regardless of whatever labels we may or may not have. By contrast, of course, when we stand in the way of peace, when we oppose peace, when we screw the whole thing up at a peace level, we oppose not just peace, but we're opposing God, because peace or shalom is a manifestation of God in the world, as is love and kindness and justice. And there's this midrash. We've been talking about midrashes, haven't we? There's this midrash or interpretation which focuses the very meaning of shalom in the story in Exodus of Moses and the burning bush. Remember that? where Moses is tending his father-in-law's sheep in the wilderness, and as he's wandering around with the sheep, he spots a lone bush that's aflame, and that wouldn't be unusual. When the sun shines down in the desert, anything that's combustible is likely to combust. But the thing that catches his attention is that it carries on burning, and he realizes there's something more going on here. The bush is never burning out. So he approaches, and you know what happens. As he gets nearby, a voice speaks to him, calls to him out of the bush. It's the voice of God. And he's told to take off the shoes from his feet because the ground is holy, and so on and so forth. But here's the thing. The Midrash, or the rabbinic interpretation, says this: God revealed himself not with angels or cherubs, but with something whose essence is peace, as it states, and God appeared to him in a blazing fire from a bush. God showed him a fire that did not consume the plant, neither did the plant extinguish the fire. Well, I think that's a wonderful interpretation, and what an amazing definition of shalom, of peace. So the burning bush is a symbol of peace, or of wholeness. It's a symbol of the peaceful coexistence of distinct or even opposing entities. Okay, and so the two things live together. And it's rather amazing, isn't it, that it is out of that paradox that God is revealed. That's where we find God, in the paradox of peaceful coexistence of difference. And Rabbi Mark says it is in fact the quintessential ethical or political definition of peace, the harmony and coexistence of two qualitatively different and contradictory phenomena. So peace, you see, is not found in forced uniformity. Yeah, that happens in the world all the time. People are outmaneuvered, or they're brutalized, or one way or another they're coerced or forced into a place of acceptance. But that's not what peace is at all. Peace isn't found in forced uniformity, much less in military or violent conquest, but in the acceptance of difference. Now, I don't know about you, but I sometimes think, why does everyone have to have an opinion about everything that then becomes the basis for conflict or prejudice or discrimination or hatred? I mean, look, I have plenty of opinions. Just ask my wife. Some are a lot stronger than others. And sometimes, I feel compelled to contest for my opinions. I feel passionate about them. They're important. And that's okay. But here's the question: am I able to distinguish between the opinion and the argument and the difference and the human being that I am facing? Am I able to stick with a person, sometimes to sit with a difference, even when there's no chance that we can resolve the issues or come to one single outcome? Now, that may be challenging, it is, but if we all simply, go hell for leather to impose our views on everybody else, then something just ain't going to work in the world. And it seems to me that is, in many ways, where we're at. I think that the grown-up way to live in the world is to accept that there is difference, bound to be, with all these millions of people, all coming from different places with different backgrounds and histories, different belief systems, different things that have impacted their lives, so much that, of course, I think it's just grown up to say, this is the world we live in. It isn't a simplistic world where everyone is going to see things and accept things the way I do. Who knows? Anyway, maybe in a while I'll change my opinion, no matter how strong I feel about it right now. Maybe my position will change. It has in the past, and you know what? I hope it will in the future. But where I draw the line is when someone not only holds a different perspective, but who then goes about imposing that on other people in a way that is hurtful or damaging or bullying or abusive to those people, then I will definitely stand up. I will oppose that position because love and justice trumps my hesitance to speak or to act. The bottom line is the grown up way to deal with difference is to talk about it. Wow, what a revelation. It's to listen and also then speak and then to listen some more. Right now, our world desperately needs to quit this knee jerk reaction of aggression and conflict and replace it with the lost and wonderful art of negotiation. And the thing is, once we begin to reach out to the stranger, we'll maybe find that they're no longer a stranger, but a companion with whom we disagree, but with whom we can travel and we can talk, maybe discover some common ground to tread in the messy but essential work of healing this lovely world of ours as grown-ups and not going around like a bunch of big kids. So here's a prayer which is from my book to come out before long, and but it's all about this thing. You may say I'm a dreamer. If woke means imagining a better world, then surely woke has to be a great idea, right, God? Some dismiss Lennon's dream as sappy, sentimental tosh, all you need is love, etc. But most people I know would wish to live in that world. I know I'm not the only one who believes that goodness will outlive spitefulness, that kindness will beat the heck out of hatred, or that light will vanquish darkness, because finally love will endure. But I long for a world where freedom to be outstrips the right to tell others how they should be, where social fears and phobias, xeno, homo, trans, and the like, are a thing of the past, along with racism, misogyny, and other senseless attitudes. Surely this can't be too much to ask. I believe the golden rule of love and mutual respect trumps every other rule and far outstrips our silly likings and proclivities. Am I woke, dear God? I do hope so, especially if woke means living with compassion, striving toward a world that welcomes strangers, whatever their story, that makes poverty history, that defends the rights of all people and relishes this incredible planet. I don't think woke is something new or faddish for bleeding liberal hearts like mine. It is the wisdom of old, emblazoned in every tradition. Treat others how you wish to be treated. Love your neighbour as yourself. Just imagine that, I say. It's easy if you try. There you go. If you have a drink, I have been needing a cup of tea for a while, so that's what my wife has just passed me. So if you've got a drink, whatever it is, I invite you to take a hold of it and join me in a toast to listening, to being authentic, but also generous of attitude. A toast to strangers, friends we just don't know yet. A toast to shalom, the coexistence of difference, to life, l'chaim. There you go. Thank you very much for being with me today. Hang on a little while for another little video of Mark Gopin at the end. But if you like what I'm doing here in the shed, then you can support us. You can buy us a coffee. All you need to do is follow the link on the screen. It's also on the YouTube, details on the YouTube video. And we're very, very grateful to all of you who support us in that way and many others as well. I've mentioned Amadam, which there's a goodly crew already booked in for, which I'm very thrilled about. It's always good to get together and, be in a space together, chewing all these things over. So if you can join me for that, where we look at the whole business of prayer from all kinds of perspectives, that would be great. And you can find there's the link on the screen there. You just need to follow that link, and you'll find your way to the Amadown booking place. Okay, so in a moment after the blessing, as I say, there's going to be this video by Mark Copen, which is just a short video of him talking about peace and spiritual practice. And I found it really, really helpful. So thought I'd pass that on. And somewhere here, there is a blessing which has not only shalom but salam in it. Salam, of course, is the Islamic term for peace in a very similar way. So, dear friends, the blessing of God, the eternal goodwill of God, the shalom and salam of God, the wildness and warmth of God be among us and between us now and always. And the blessing of God, Creator, Liberator and Sustainer, be with us all now and always. Amen.
So I've lived a life of ritual in my own experience and my own background, and as I grew into the field of conflict analysis and resolution, and especially the ethics of it, I started to see some things missing in the field and missing in practice, and a lot of the practice was particularly focused on dialogue. But I've seen many people with heavy trauma and with heavy suspicion of each other respond to other things, and sometimes I would just experiment, and I'm looking for a way of understanding why those experiments are working. And one of those experiments was that I sat in a room with people heavily laden with sadness and war, and I couldn't tell why they weren't speaking to each other, and they were all in Syria, they were all from Syria, and they were all in Jordan, and we were right on the border, and they had just come out. And I did something, and I passed around some figs that I had just bought in Jerusalem. And I said, I want to pass each of these figs to you, but don't eat them. And then I want to say a blessing. And I said, I want to bless with this fig that you all have long life and happiness and everything that you seek. And then they went around one by one, and I asked them to each make a blessing. And so this one blessed that I want to be able to find the grave of my brother. I want to be able to be buried in my backyard. I want to see my brother one more time. They all started weeping. And then they bonded. But they had come from a police state, and it had never been done before. It was also that the ritual I gave was a Jewish ritual, and they were Muslim and Christian. But it didn't matter. And I didn't say it was Jewish. I said, I want you all to do a Jewish ritual. What I did was I focused on that deep space, and Jerusalem, which is a symbol for everyone, and figs, which are a symbol of life. And through my intuition in that second, that the dialogue was not going to work, I drew deeper into myself and drew deeper into them, without being very invasive, but invitational, and it worked. I want to know why it works. I want to know why it works so that we can find an intelligent way to move this into practice. Not in a gross way, not in an invasive way, but just in a subtle way to see the power of how we can all change each other for the better, despite the horror of war, and maybe even prevent wars by going deeply into our relationships through ritual.
Bit of a darling, isn't he? Go well, guys, and I'll see you soon.